So welcome to the first virtual Florence Guild. You know, it's all a very new world that we're all living in, but we thought we wouldn't want to be without Florence Guild. So now we're trying this out and see how we can make this into a conversation. I'm not quite sure, but we'll have a go at it. It's a crazy time, but just before we go there, I just want to remind everybody what Florence Guild is around, just at a very high level. Florence Guild, remember, is our way of connecting people in meaningful ways, and really the soft part, or really the essential part behind Work Club. Work Club as a space is just a supporting act, and it's really our ability to connect members and have real conversations like hopefully today that are going to drive real human connections beyond and be there from a personal perspective, but also professional perspective. I'm not sure how that works from a virtual perspective. I've always been quite against the tech component, and it's more about the face-to-face. But given the reality of where we are, we're going to give it a go. And for the next maybe 20, 30 minutes, it's going to be a conversation between me, Lisa, and Christina. And we'll try, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A, you can ask questions, you can raise your hand, and then we'll do our best to try and make it interactive as well. For those of you that have not met the panel today, Lisa Andrews, the co-CEO of Singularity University, Australia, and got a long list of accomplishment behind her, but very much involved at the SU level on a global level, and both Christina and Lisa are. So great capacity from a US and from a global perspective, not just an Australian perspective. So both have got a very global perspective on really what's happening around the world from a trend perspective, which hopefully we can get an insight to today. And Christina Gerakiteys, who's the other co-CEO of SU. And yeah, welcome both, and thanks for joining us virtually.
Thank you so much for having us.
So what we're going to talk about is really what's the world beyond COVID-19. But I think in talking about that, we're probably not also going to touch about what the world is like now and how we're handling this COVID-19 from a government perspective. But let's look ahead, and maybe I'll start with you, Lisa. What's your view of what comes post COVID-19?
Yeah, great question. And a little bit of insight into where my answer comes from is that I'm a CFO by trade. And so my expert faculty status with Singularity University is on the future of finance. And so this is a huge time, particularly from a macroeconomic level as well. So I believe if we have a look at the CFO process, I'll share with you is where are we at now? Where do we want to be? And then where's that gap analysis? And a lot of the methodology we use with Singularity is around the mindset, the technology, and the impact. And so whilst we've been looking at all these different exponential technologies that are coming in the future, when something like a pandemic happens like this, some of them are being brought forward. So it's really interesting times. I think we're definitely seeing a lot with the mindset. We're seeing a lot with technology, the impact that's having on all of our lives. So I think, what does it hold at the moment? For me, I can see that we're all becoming a lot more into being more human and really appreciating what it means to be human. I'm not sure if that answers your question specifically. I've got so many views on this, but I could talk for a very long time.
I'll let Christina answer that one too, and then maybe circle back on that human aspect. I think that's super.
I think we're all very much aligned on the human aspect. My specialty is moonshot thinking. So where do we go from here? And I actually think it's an amazing opportunity for us to hit the reset button. There is no way I would have asked for the current circumstances in order to hit the reset button, but I think humanity has actually been given an opportunity to rethink what it's like to be a future citizen, a future global citizen. I think it's no accident that pre-COVID we were already talking about universal basic incomes, we were already talking about global citizenship, and I think this has actually pushed us in that direction faster than what we would have gone. We were speaking a lot about innovation and being fluid and being agile. And a lot of people actually weren't quite walking the talk. It's like this has given us a kick up the backside in order to live all the words that we have been saying for quite some time that we want to live in order to create the world that we want to live in. So I think moonshot, there's never been a better time to moonshot, to imagine how we want the global aspect, the global view to be. How, you know, I was really impressed the other day, and it might only say it's a small thing and a big thing at the same time, but when the United Nations asked for a ceasefire, you know, when was the last time that actually happened? Whether it comes to reality or not, whether it comes to fruition, who knows? But it's the first time that countries across the world on such a large scale have actually been helping each other. And we always thought that the enemy would, you know, come from outer space. Well, you know, here we are banding together to stand together against a pandemic.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're saying it's almost like it's a reset in a way, and a reflective period, because when do you get a chance to actually almost stop and you're sort of questioning everything? Because that's what you do, I think, naturally. And those initiatives that, as you have talked about, the universal income, all of those, there's almost case studies to be had when we come out of this. Because in Australia, it's almost universal income. It's not quite, but with the 1,500 job seeker dollars, that's the same for everyone, no matter what you made before, what you didn't make before. It's universal.
Yeah.
So there are some actually fascinating, if you can use that word, case studies which will come out of this.
Can I ask as well, and I just want to be conscious that sometimes we can be very positive, and I think we're all internally optimists with where we're at right now, is actually taking that time to sort of pre-frame here as we have these conversations and recognize the positive and the negative. So and even if everyone wants to share in the chat how they're feeling, you know, maybe a one word, how they're feeling, and make sure that I'm appreciating that there is bad and good, and we're seeing a lot of suffering in the economy and with jobs and work. So let's recognise that, and as we talk about that as well.
And also that we can have these conversations from a point of relative privilege as well. So, you know, we have employment, we have families, we have shelter. You know, there's lots of people around the globe that don't have even those starting points at the moment.
Absolutely. And obviously there is change is a scary thing for a lot of people. And this uncertainty on top of that is creating, you know, for some people, it's just the worst possible kind of environment. So you can't underestimate that. And it's not about just painting a rosy picture of the past, but you can approach it from a point of opportunity and see, well, what can I learn? And that is whether you lose your job or whether you got to start again. You have a choice. You always have a choice, right? Whether you're a victim or whether you are somebody who actually want to learn from this. And again, that's sometimes a little bit from privilege saying that, but I think it's a fundamental approach. Easier said than done.
Yeah, it is mindset. And I love with SingularityU, we talk about how our brains have evolved, and over 200,000 years, we've had this scarcity mindset where it was, where's my next meal coming from, or what's going to eat me? It was always danger. And it's only in the last 100, 200 years that we're thinking about this abundance mindset, which is almost shift where we can have comfort and certainty in 6 months. So where are we going on holidays? Are we going to change career, or what are we going to plan out? And we can really feel 6 months. And my favorite meme from social media in the last 3 months has been around how Australia's been hit so hard. So January was bushfires, February was floods, and now in March, the meme originally said it was the Great Toilet Paper Panic. And now it's obviously a lot more than that, but it's kind of how we all went back to scarcity mode because change was so sudden. And how do we now actually go, okay, well, let's see it as it is. There's positive, there's negatives. How do we synthesize that and move forward?
And the beauty that did come with that was the assistance and the help that everybody within Australia, particularly around the fires, was everybody jumped in. And then globally, you know, I've never had so many calls from overseas colleagues going, are you okay? Is everything all right? How are you? So again, you know, for the positive and the negative, we were going through so much negativity, but there was so much positive kindness and everything that was shown to us. I actually read something this morning that startled me. It was a poem it's starting to go around social media as well. It was written during the Spanish flu, and you might as well have written it today. It's about taking time and nature, and when was the last time you had to read a book, and very much the conversation that you opened up earlier, Soren. So it was quite fascinating to read this poem that was written in the time of the Spanish flu that is absolutely applicable to everything we're going through today.
Mm. And I think that it's so unprecedented in terms of, I mean, for example, personally on Florence Guild and Work Club, I'm taking a step back and reflecting on everything, on where we're heading, what potentially the world is going to look like beyond this. And I think a lot of people are, they're going to come out of this with a different view, with a different and hopefully more human view, that you said, that it does matter. Your network matters, community matters. You're hearing words. There's certain words that are being used a lot at the moment that kind of just is on steroids. You know, community, connectedness. And you see those, and I think I hope that's what we're going to see on the other side. That those words have got real meaning now, and they're more than just words.
It's definitely forcing us to think about what we appreciate and what we miss, that's for sure. I know I definitely miss work clubs and coming in there all the time. Yep, phones on silent. That was a good message, thanks. I can actually see work club almost from my place. I'm down at Barangaroo, so I'm missing it a lot. And that's that community. I think we'll come back and we'll come together a lot stronger than ever.
Let's talk about the now, and there's two things I want to talk about: media, and how you think the media is doing in this period right now. And also I want to talk about governments, what your thoughts are. There's different examples of how to approach this, right? You know, there's Sweden, for example, have been very, they are not shutting down. They're advising the weak and the elderly to stay indoor, but the rest of the population is out. And their strategy is to go through this fast and come out on the other side faster. Other countries and governments are taking different approaches. Like Australia, it looks like it's a little bit more drawn out process. Any views that you have on that? You know, let me hear those.
I've been talking about universal basic income for a long time, and I do very strongly feel like we've had that in Australia. We just don't call it that. And you know, as the current situation unfolds, I'm very pro-Australia, and I don't think there's ever been a time where I'm more proud to be Australian. And I look at the messaging where the government first came out and they said that we're going to find our most vulnerable first and support them. And so the packages originally got announced. They announced $3 billion and then $17 billion and then $200+ billion. We all dream of having a unicorn business. Imagine that kind of budget. However, it was, you know, everyone gets $550 a week from Centrelink, and then it was the helping employers keep jobs. And I've noticed the language is really around employment, jobs, and putting us into hibernation. And I say that because the contrast, or if I compare it to somewhere like the US, and they talk about businesses and how businesses can survive, as opposed to employees and humans actually having their basic needs. And I think the other contrast I have on that point is there was a lot of videos of the military in New York and keeping everyone in their homes. And at the time, our military was preparing to deliver groceries. And I go, wow, okay, that kind of, you know, puts it into perspective and go, well, it's actually universal basic needs that we're looking at. It's groceries, it's food, we're all banding together in this together. So I am very pro-Australia and proud at the moment.
I actually don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. I think population matters. I think how many ICU beds you have matters in the approach that you take to COVID. I was really, again, as Lisa, very proud of Australia. I think we went from 2,200 ICU beds to 7,000 ICU beds in the space of a week. So we were being proactive in our preparation for what might come, at the same time doing all we can to flatten the curve. I think it is, I had the great pleasure of interviewing Dr. Simon Tucker, who was very much involved in the test for influenza A, influenza B, HIV, came up with a vaccine for influenza A, influenza B last week. And this question came up, you know, what about different reactions, what's happening across the globe? And whether you chase the herd immunity or whether you go for the isolation and the flattening of the curve, so that, and flattening of the curve doesn't mean that as many people aren't going to get it, as we know it. It just means that it's going to take longer to pass through, but hopefully we have enough ICU beds. We don't kill our medicos. 100 doctors have died in Italy dealing because they've had overexposure to the virus. And, you know, can you imagine that, losing 100 doctors? So I think what we've done has been very measured. I know in the beginning I was going, lock us down, like, you know, go faster, lock us down. It seems that the timing has been pretty good from our perspective. Thank God we're not Italy. Thank goodness we're not Spain. I have a colleague in Spain who said the worst decision Spain ever made was to allow a demonstration or a big march that happened on the 3rd of March, actually. And from there, their numbers just skyrocketed. So I think there is no right answer. There's no wrong answer. There have been educated answers. I think we have been blessed to be coming at this last and being able to learn from China, from Korea, from, you know, Singapore, from Europe. So we've been a little bit fortunate in that regard into how we've dealt with it. But I'm very proud of the way our government's handled the situation as well.
But have we learned? You know, my question is, there's so much focus on the pandemic, right? How many more times is that deadlier than the normal flu? That's still to be seen, right? Nobody really knows. In normal flu instances, we don't shut down an entire country and economic system.
I know, Soren, but my response to that, sorry, is that when was the last time you saw Central Park set up as a medical zone for influenza? You know,
absolutely, that's correct. I think the reporting, though, from a media perspective, it's very one-sided, and it's very much, at times, I feel, sensationalist in terms of, you know, we're now at 19 deaths, and you know, there's very little relativeness or comparedness to what does that actually mean compared to, you know, how many people die in the traffic every year. Do we even notice that? You know, how many people die of overdoses every year, and we don't even talk about it. We're numb to all these parts. But this is, there's a whole herd mentality around how we're reacting to this as well, which I think is fascinating. And sometimes I question the objectivity of the press.
I want to share. So I think we are a little higher than that in Australia. I'm just trying to find the link to share it with everyone. But there's the World Health Organization that has their dashboard, but then there's also
Worldometer.
Yeah, the Worldometer. That's the one.
Yeah. We're up to 50. We're up to 50 deaths in Australia.
And I think that's one of the things I've noticed is when have we ever had sort of up-to-date daily information across the entire world on how many cases, how many deaths, how many have recovered. So if someone, I'm not sure if we'll post the link in there of where that dashboard is, but every morning sort of waking up and I'm seeing the exponential graph of, you know, how many more deaths overnight. The US has just gone through the roof. They reached a couple of days ago was 1,000.
The last 24 hours were 1,800 deaths that have been attributed to coronavirus.
Yeah, and I think if you have a look at the exponential and the word exponential, we talk about exponential all the time, exponential tech, exponential mindset at SingularityU, but it's a mathematical formula, which is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and I don't think we'll ever have to sort of share or educate people on what an exponential graph looks like anymore, because we are seeing these doubling of cases where one person gives it to 2 people, that they give it to, you know, more people. So I definitely think it is something that, you know, it's a new world where we live and data is available.
And we were actually having this conversation again last week with Dr. Simon Tucker and Simone Plante, who's on our SU faculty. And we decided that we would know more post-COVID when all that data can be collected. It's very hard to collect the data at the moment and use it constructively on a day-to-day basis. The benefit of that data is going to come at the end when we can look back and go, this country handled it like this. These are the stats around that. Here's the data that we've collected here. And again, the hard thing around collecting the data at the moment is we actually don't, unless we test every single person on the planet, we don't really know who's got it, who hasn't got it. We don't know who's passed it, who hasn't passed it. You know, the whole conversation around antibodies, and is that the way to go to let people back into society so that you get your QR code that says, yes, you've had it, you can go and work on the front line, so to speak, and help people, or you're now okay to go back to work because you've had it. And then there's the questions about second wave, third wave. Like, we're in totally unknown, uncharted waters, unknown territory.
But it's fascinating as well, because what's the moral balance, right, between shutting down business and that effect that has on people? You know, so the human costs of you know, separations, divorces, anxiety, depressions. There is a ripple effect of
domestic violence.
Yes, you know, and you can run through all of those, and we will have no idea of the scale of that. But there's no doubt that will have a significant human cost that stems from the economic outfall from this. And at what point do the balance go in the other direction, where it's now, that's too scary, because that can become, you know, the divide between the haves and haves not could actually become a lot greater because of that going forward. So I think
the divide is also mindset.
True. But the actual divide of actually having or not having, I think there's a danger that at some point you have to be pragmatic and say, okay, this is now leaning in too much in one direction, and it's dangerous as well. And that's the conversation that I don't think many people are ready for that conversation at this point. I think it's too early. I recognize that, but I think it's only a question of time, because it must be had. You know, it can't just be one-sided and not thinking through the impacts from a human perspective on all the rest. And
I absolutely agree. And I'm looking as well, someone's shared about the media doing more harm than good in this instance. And there's a great TED talk that is called Information as Food. And it's about how we get to choose what we eat. So you go to a buffet, how do you not get overweight and eat too many donuts? Is you actually consciously choose what you consume. And so if we can have a look at information in that way, and particularly now where people are really tuning in to a channel, and it might be a negative channel or conspiracy theory, that might be a positive channel as well. How do we actually choose to eat vegetables instead of donuts in our information, or at least recognize that they're all there and not get too overwhelmed by one of them?
I think Bill Gates summed it up very well for me when he said, there is a human side and there's an economic side. We can actually, we can bring back an economy. It may take a lot longer than what we initially thought, but we can bring back the economy. We can't bring back the people that have died. And that very much resonated with me. I live with somebody who's immunocompromised. My dad is quite elderly. If either of them got coronavirus, I don't know whether either of them would actually survive it. So for me, walking in that personal space is a reality. And I totally agree with you. I think the economic space, but then I also read somewhere that our treasurer had asked for a freeze on all global repayments, and let's do this universal basic income. And I just went, yes, let's do that. But I am idealistic. I'm optimistic. always have been. Probably, you know, some people would say I'm a bit naive, maybe. But for me, if we operate from the human pillars of kindness, respect, hope, love, then we can pull things together so that we have maximum number of survivors and we can repair our economy. You know, if we actually get to diminish greed through all of this, and as you have said, close that bracket between the haves and the have-nots, which this is also an opportunity to do. Maybe that's the way forward.
It's interesting as well, the whole sort of chain of, or the links in the chain from a financial perspective. We are, Work Club is just a link like everybody else, and when we paused or allowed members to pause their memberships here the 1st of April, we were just another link, and we took that decision because I just felt it was the right thing to do, regardless of what the link above us were going to do or not do.
Yeah.
And I think if we talk about, if we sort of shift over and talk about leadership in companies, I think it's going to be, again, that's another perfect case study, I think, coming out of this, where we can learn, and it's going to be very obvious to see how did certain companies handle this with their own team and their clients, and how did they, you know, come out of it. Because I think there's nowhere to hide as a leader. You know, it's going to be obvious which way you took. Did you follow your values, or did you not? What's your view on that part?
That's a great point. I believe we'll be talking about this for forever, like hundreds of years to come. About it'll be used as an example. I think as we take stock now and we're deep in it, it's very hard to sometimes take a step back and really show true leadership. Those that do will be spoken about for a long time to come. And I think, you know, people do actually speak with their wallets as well. So when the economy does recover, they will all support businesses who have done the right thing. And I mean, the future of work is already here and it's coming forward. So, you know, if we even think about shared workspaces, you know, I'm so proud to be part of Work Club. And I know that, you know, there's a lot of businesses that won't be able to continue with their rent or get back to things as they were in the past. And some might not want to. People are going to get used to working from home and they're going to want that human connection. And your leadership in this space is going to absolutely shine through.
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge what you have done as well, and back Lisa up on our absolute alignment between the values of Work Club and the values of that we hold quite dear at SingularityU Australia. And when we say how will people operate against their values, I think some people will discover that they haven't actually got a set of values that they have decided to operate under. So hopefully it pushes some organisations further into investigating what their values are, what they want to stand for, what their social impact is going to be. And I think the Florence Guild, I mean, you know, I was one of the very first members of Florence Guild. I absolutely love the conversations that you instigate throughout Florence Guild. So we were thrilled when you said, you know, let's take this online. Because how can you not have these conversations, and how can you not respectfully listen to other people? And if that tends to form a different opinion in your head, or if you start questioning what your beliefs are, I think that is where leadership is going to come in the future. Somebody who isn't steadfast, who actually listens. So where we've had a new CEO come into SingularityU, and we're so fortunate that he's actually listening to everybody. So, and I think that's what you do constantly, and you listen to your people and you care about your people. And I totally agree with what Lisa said about, at the end of the day, people are going to talk with their wallets, and we're seeing it. We were seeing evidence of that before. I think that's going to be something that comes more and more to the forefront. And who knows what exactly the future of work's going to be. But I believe we're going to find that middle ground. There's people that were very adverse to technology that have been thrown into using technology. There's people that were totally tech focused and thought everything could be done, you know, through a Zoom meeting. I think we're actually going to find that we do need the human connectedness. Technology is an amazing tool. And as we say at SU Australia, you know, we stand for where the values of humanity meet the value of technology. And I think this is going to bring us closer to that point.
Yeah, great. And also going forward, I think beyond this, I hope that consumers of services, products will be more conscious around who they're using and how those companies reacted during this time and treated both their clients and customers. So I think that will be the world beyond as well, which can only be a good thing, in my view. How are you? You got a lot of books, Christina, there. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, do you like that?
How are you doing working from remotely? How's that going?
I think we've been working remotely for quite some time. Whether I've actually been working remotely only in this room, that's the question, because we've been working remotely from Work Club, from overseas. You know, if we happen to be at a conference, giving a talk, part of a meeting overseas, which has clearly stopped. So for me, it's more, how do I find being in this one place constantly? I think we're very fortunate in this country that we haven't been totally locked in yet, that I can still go for a walk every morning, that if I need to clear my head, I can still go around the block. I actually really enjoy being in this room. And the story behind these books, Soren, is that I have not read every single one of them, but I feel that if I sit in this room long enough, the knowledge will transfer itself into my head. So yeah. I'm in a good spot. I'm in a good spot.
And your books are all in front of you, right, Lisa?
I have a wall of books that's not in this little space, but I'm book obsessed. I actually had to stop buying physical books and get them on my iPad, because lugging them around to each time I move is not light. But it's been nice working from home. I spent 85% of last year traveling. So to be a little bit more grounded, I actually put it out to the universe at the beginning of the year that this was my year to just not travel so much. I was going to center myself and be able to spend a bit more time at home. And I know that I've been doing a lot of flights, and I was conscious about what that does to the environment. And I apologize in advance. I think the universe said, oh, wow, that's such a great idea. You should all stay home and chill out and meditate and be centered for a little while. So.
I remember I said to Pernilla, my wife, early this year in January, this is going to be a year of change, massive change. And I had no idea, no idea that it was going to be this kind of change. What's your best guess of how long this is going to take in Australia, in terms of us being under restrictions? What's your guess?
Oh, this is going to be controversial and bad. I think 2020 is looking like it will be until we have a vaccine. I've heard different things, and I'm not an expert in this space, but that does it go into recession and then come back again? And so this exponential effect, because it's so contagious, could happen as well. So I think it will be until we get control of it, which who knows how long that'll take. So a lot of my planning, I'm planning to be here till through December, and then 2021 things will be very different. Someone's just put in here saying more about the mindset as well. So I'm very much, I don't think it will ever be the same again. Restrictions, yes, they'll lift at some point, or they'll get less stringent, but how do we actually bounce forward, not bounce back to where we were? And I think that's an important part of mindset. And then also, how do we see, I love the quantum physics of that the world is always in perfect equilibrium of positive and negative. How do you actually step back and see both of them? And sometimes you can't when you're right in the depth of that. So when I'm talking about mindset, it's like, let's see the positive and the negative, synthesize them and move forward anyway. And that can be a great opportunity to make the most of seeing what we're seeing in the economy at the moment, and being able to do things differently quicker. So sorry, it's not great news on when I think that it's going to be lifted, but it's mindset's going to be important in this part.
Yeah.
Bill Gates actually extends it beyond that, Lisa. He actually said not to plan anything until June 2021. I personally don't think it will be that long, but we're in this total uncharted water scenario. We really don't know, and it depends on, does the virus mutate? Will there be a second wave, third wave? What will that look like? But we've actually asked our partners and our colleagues to think that the new normal is uncharted, and how do you live in uncharted space? And for me, so we've been talking for quite some time about, it's no accident that exponential tech has hit us at the same time as increased awareness around meditation, yoga, breathing. So I think that the way to get through this is to live in each moment, and to breathe in each moment, and to not wonder what new normal is, but to go, each step I take is the place where I'm at. And I think that is the best way, mindset wise, for us to get through the next 5 months, 6 months, 12 months, however long that's going to be. But to alter our mindset, to actually bring it in, to bring it into the breathing, the yoga, the meditation, and marry that with the, again, it's that medium. Bring those two things together, and we have that middle path.
Yeah, that's well said, both of you. Really well said. I want to sort of open it up, but it's such a yin and yang. It's both, right? It's not a positive, it's not a negative. It's you always remember that it's that yin and yang, and it just is. And the more we can be present and seeing both and working with both, and being present, I think is critical. And
there's a great book that I highly, totally recommend anybody read right now. It's called The Surrender Experiment, by Michael Singer. And it is, for me, it is a perfect book for living right now, because it is surrendering to everything that's happening, knowing that I have control over the things I have control of, but there's so many things that I don't have control of and never had control of, so where's that balance? But surrender to the universe and see what she's about to dish out.
I love Peter Diamandis' book as well, The Future is Faster Than You Think, and how technology is going to change every industry in the next 10 years. I think it's going to change every industry in the next 5 years. So that'd be a good one to think of opportunity.
I think every industry is looking at right now what can change and what can be changed. And everything is just accelerated because of this. I just want to say to those that's listening, and will be listening later for the members, if any of you want to reach out, I know that the team is reaching out to you on a regular basis, but you're always welcome to reach out if it's, for whatever reason, if there's any support needed, or just a sounding board on whether it's business or personal. We are here. The clubs are not closed at the moment. We have a skeleton staff. We just have 1 or 2 people in each location. They don't have to. It's up to them. But we are here on the phone and virtually, and also in person if any of you wanted to. Any questions coming through that we need to just cover at this point?
Well, Jackie's got, do we have more time? And if so, what are we doing with it? I've probably not got more time, because I'm spending a lot of time just reaching out and on the phone and checking in on people. So I think I've got this, what do I want my legacy to be? And it's that I was the person that was there for someone, or was there for them when they needed it the most. So I think I'm doing a lot of that. And then also as well, scheduling a lot of catch-ups and practicing physical distancing, not social distancing. So we're organising for Easter this weekend a family time where we'll have 30 of our family jump online and, on Zoom, so we can see each other and still be able to have some of those routines. And I think as we talk about it's physical distancing, not social distancing, what are the habits and routines with the people we care about the most that we can keep? So if you have dinner with your parents on a Tuesday night, still have dinner with your parents on a Tuesday night, but on your laptop, and cook a meal and then sit the meal and eat together. So
we'd actually,
I've had a shift in time, not more time, that's for sure.
We'd actually like to reiterate that, Soren, with all your messages that go out from Work Club and to the people on this webinar and to maybe listening later. We've been asking everybody to shift the language from social distancing to physical distancing, because we need to remain socially connected, and it's that physical distance that we really need. And I was really proud of one of our faculty. So we did some faculty training a couple of weeks ago, and one of our faculty is Nikki Hutley, and she was on Q&A that evening, and she actually said to them at Q&A, please don't call it social distancing, it's physical distancing. And I've noticed the words actually coming up through some of the government speak and everything. So if we can encourage that, for me, that's really important.
Great point. We just a couple of more information, just for people listening in. Work Club Virtual is our platform where all communication is flowing through. So check in on that on a daily level. You know, you never probably used to do that, but right now there's a lot of information coming through. We'll be doing yoga online. We'll be doing meditation online. So the earth-centered components, and we'll continue to do some of these more, I'm not going to say intellectual because I don't feel intellectual, but I know you two guys are. So
it's actually quite spiritual. It's like that. It's everything coming together. So for me, nothing operates unless it operates in its entirety. So it's body, mind, heart, soul. And I don't think we've ever been asked to operate from all four centers of our being as we're being asked to operate from them now. So I think it's really important. I love the fact that you're doing yoga and meditation, and I'll be there.
Thank you so much for your leadership and keeping us all connected.
No,
that's the most important thing right now.
Small cock in the wheel here, but I think I think stay calm. You know, it's not. There will be I think a good world after all of this, and everything happens for a reason. And I do see it as a positive. I don't underestimate the challenges and the negative components that are there. And at times I question how much this is going to cost us from a human perspective, and at what point is that price too high? But I think that's not for now. That's for a little bit later. And I think when people are more ready for that, I'll probably share more on that part. For now, if we don't have more questions, do we have more coming through?
Ken's actually just asked about the thoughts on the supply chain reliance on China. And one of the biggest things that I've been looking at here is 3D printing has been one of the technologies that we're expecting in the future. And if you think at that at home manufacturing versus the local manufacturing versus the national versus the international manufacturing, I think all parts of that supply chain are important. I do believe that we'll see a lot more local manufacturing. I think 3D printing is a huge space where people can get into. We're 3D printing with over 250 materials now, and it includes materials. So imagine 3D printing masks, 3D printing different pieces. So what we're sort of seeing right now is what are those basic needs, and that's where the economy will start to come back first.
And I think from a wider, higher level than nutting into the 3D printing, I think people are questioning actually putting all their eggs, so to speak, in the one basket. And, you know, what does it mean to actually grow something at home and to have something manufactured at home and have those options? And if we're going to have to pay a little bit extra, you know, is that worth it? Is that not worth it? And I think before we were seeing a move to Australia made, or, you know, that it's been a campaign that's been going on for years. So potentially this will reiterate what that is for us and what it is globally for different people around the globe. So I think that don't have all your eggs in the one basket is going to really be very important. But I've done some work with a lot of manufacturing organisations, and I'm really proud of the way that they've adapted. You know, we've got a couple of distilleries that are now making hand sanitizer. We've got some manufacturing organisations that are assisting with the production and the altering of masks for ventilators around. This is globally around the world. So I think that's a really important thing for people to understand also how quickly they can pivot. So where they may have been stuck in the fear of, will my manufacturing industry last? All of a sudden they've had to pivot very quickly to come to the aid of a government, a country, their citizens, you know, the global community, and they've managed to do that. I think the innovation, like I saw a mask the other day, or a respirator the other day that was now through innovation could feed 9 masks. So from one respirator they were feeding 9. From the 3D printing of the ventilator components, you know, there were hundreds of those being printed. So I think we're seeing remarkable innovation, and that's where our headspace needs to continue as well.
Yeah, I hope we're going to get away from or have less mass consumption in this terms of just disposable thinking that we buy and we throw away. And I think local manufacturing could play into that, where it's you buy something and it lasts. To me, that is sustainability, and that's true sustainability, not a couple of ticks in boxes along the way. I think the future, there's a question around workspace in the future. I have a view on that, if I may.
Do you?
Yeah, what I'm hearing at the moment from a lot of enterprise, which is big corporates, is that I was speaking to a big law firm yesterday, and they have got their entire team working from home. They are finding that they're actually up in revenue, which is not surprising that that's lawyers at the moment, but tech is actually working for them, and it's working really well. They have 8 floors in a big high rise in Sydney. They're going to come back, and they're going to, and they've just moved in, and they're going to downgrade to 6 floors. So they're actually going to sublease 2 floors, 25% of the space, because they now understand that they don't actually need it. And part of what they're giving away, they're going to add on in flexibility. So companies, people going forward, key words I think is agility and flexibility, and really building that into your model and realizing that what you thought you needed is not what you need. You need a lot less core long-term space, and then you need probably access to flexible space that you can turn up and down as and when you need it. So I think we'll see an acceleration of that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Can I just call out, I want to, there was a Q&A that came through that I just typed an answer as well, was how are we supporting clients who are experiencing extreme fear response to the current situation? And I want to acknowledge that, because I feel if anyone is in extreme fear, then that's an on the phone straight away. So and that's why it's important to check in with people. Any sort of language around extreme fear and stuff like that is really worrying. So I obviously would be addressing it straight away, given I've just read this question and I'm having an emotional reaction. So, I want to make sure anyone knows in our community as well, Soren, I know you're the same, you're reaching out to anyone. And then for people listening as well, is that make sure that you're connecting with people one-on-one if it is like that.
It's something we talk about as a team, that we look at the scale of reactions to this. One end of the scale is this extreme fear and just extreme on the one end. On the other end is on that scale is just indifference almost. And I think there's reactions all the way through, and you've got to recognize and acknowledge all of those and be sensitive when we talk to members or people connected to us as to, where are they on that scale,
on the line, yeah.
And be sensitive to how we support.
And I think also that there's no shame. It's really important to understand there's no shame in being scared, because it is scary, and that we're all built differently, even like chemically. Some of us are built for fight, some of us are built for flight, and that's just the way it is. And if someone's having an extreme anxiety reaction to this, that's just as normal as the person who can stand bravely and go forward 1 foot at a time. So I think recognizing, again, that there's no right, there's no wrong reaction to this, but the right thing to do is to reach out, tell somebody how you're feeling, connect with somebody that you trust. And sometimes, it's easier to connect with somebody that doesn't know you. So Soren, you've given everybody the perfect vehicle to say, hey, come in, grab us on the phone, have a conversation. I know that I've been in constant contact with a few clients I used to mentor through business who are suffering high anxiety. We've been in constant contact over the last, month, 6 weeks. So don't be scared to reach out. Don't think that there's anything to be ashamed of or anything wrong with how you're feeling, because it absolutely isn't. We haven't been here before. We don't know how this is going to end. The best thing we can do is to support each other.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm going to keep jumping in if I can with another one. So Taylor's asked the thoughts of the growth of VR and what we've seen. And I like the idea of, and SingularityU, we're very futuristic. And I'd highly recommend, if people haven't seen it, the movie Ready Player One. I don't know if anyone's seen that movie, but it's in virtual reality, and they wear a haptic suit, and then they meet people in virtual locations and whatnot. And then I look at the screen with Zoom, and I think about there's R&D that needs to be done from here to Ready Player One. And, we will see a lot more of that in the future. I don't have any company names that are doing it well at the moment, but there's definitely going to be advancements in time like this. I know we're doing summits, or we're looking at summits where you can actually have rooms and breakout rooms where you've got a virtual map and you can go into different rooms in VR and meet with people. But I think overall, and even in the movie, it still came back to being human. And I think us all sort of, you know, still needing to come and meet in person and have a hug and have that human connection is never going to change.
No, hopefully not. Okay. Is there any more comments, Lisa, Christina? Otherwise,
I can't read them from where I am. I'm relying on Lisa to read out some of the questions.
I'm loving the questions. Thank you for sending them all through as well for everyone on here. We've got someone's mentioned thinking, do we think super funds should be investing more in social bonds? And I want to totally disclaim that financial advice and whatnot, and talking about what people should invest in. Definitely, I'm not going to comment like this, but what I am personally investing in and what I'm looking at is being able to create a platform for people with great technologies to be able to get them funding or angel funding to get them out to the world. So that's what I'm personally doing with investments, and I don't have enough to comment on super funds. That's for sure. I know all the markets are going to take a hit at the moment. They've already taken a hit, but we'll continue to.
I'm not an accountant by trade, so I can give you a personal opinion on that, which Lisa beautifully and professionally may not be as free to. So I'm very much around voting with my wallet. So for me, a super fund but I should be investigating super funds that invest in organizations and companies that I feel socially comfortable, morally comfortable, that align with my values. That's where I want my money to be invested in. So I don't know if it's the super funds should, or if it's our own personal individual, I'm going to vote with my wallet. But I think we need to take responsibility for where our own funds go. So there you go, there's the answer. I am personally responsible for where my money goes for my super.
Absolutely. And every day, you know, where you choose to spend it. If you spend it on disposable items that you throw out in a few days, or you buy to keep, you know, that's not privileged. That's just thinking, I think. At least that's the thinking from the culture I come from.
I love what so what you do with Work Club and the whole environment there too, Soren, is that you don't throw a table you don't throw it out if it has a mark on it. You go look at the history that mark brings with it. Like, I just love all your reasonings for having the furnishings and having that sustainability in the way that you invest in Work Club. I think that speaks for itself. Like, you know, there's a lot of people that don't walk their talk. You absolutely walk your talk. Thank you.
No, but it's interesting because we're in the middle of a big fit out, which is underway in Melbourne for our new site, Older Fleet, and we're on site at the moment, and hopefully we continue to be, in terms of no lockdown on actual construction sites, which would be a disaster for the community at large. But it's interesting because we continuing getting these, you know, suggestions from very well-meaning people that, do you realize that, you know, if you did this or that or this, that it will, you know, you could save X or Y, and it's a mindset thing, right? And it's one way you're going to continue to take a different view, you know, a long-term view, which I think is I hope more will do it. And it's not because I'm you know, doing the right thing or anything else, but I think it's not elitist, it's not premium, it's not exclusive, it's just is. And I think it's the right thing to do for your supply chain. It's the right thing to do from a sustainability perspective, from so many angles, that I can't see it being any other way.
Yeah. And I love what you've done as well. I've got to say, looking after all the people that work with you in that conversation that we had earlier this week, how you are managing to hold onto a beautiful team. We love everyone in your team. So that might be something that a lot of people don't know about you either, but you are really looking after the people that are part of your Work Club family. Yeah,
I mean, we're hunkering down, and we don't know whether this is a month or more, the whole team have taken a big cut across the board. Everybody's taking an equal cut to hopefully keep everyone on board and not just a few. So that's the approach, and like everybody else, we've got to take a day at a time and see where we go. So thank you both. I think we're almost an hour, so that ran maybe a little bit longer than what we thought, but thank you so much. Your views and perspectives are, like I said at the start, they're global, they're considered, and maybe we come back again when this whole thing is over, and not I told you so, but we can talk about what's actually happening at that point.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I'd love to call out as well that the community is keeping together here. So we're all in it together, and thank you so much for making us feel so much a part of the community as well. We're all here for you and for Work Club, and we're all in it together.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for participating and taking the time to listen in. Feel free to reach out afterwards if you didn't get to ask any questions or anything you want to follow up with. Thank you so much.
And we're happy to answer questions or forward any messages on as well. So look forward to hearing from people.
Absolutely. Good. Take care,
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.